Isolation is a death sentence for many of us.
One thing I was not expecting after I got married was how lonely the entire experience really is.
Do you ever get lonely?
Yeah, I think everyone gets lonely.
That's almost like a daily struggle.
I am so lonely, like so deeply craving,
So she's talking about how being really, really deeply lonely makes it harder for you to make friends, and that couldn't be any more true.
Gen Z is going through a loneliness epidemic, and it's time we talk about it. Hey guys, it's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we're back and we're talking about Gen Z. Specifically some discourse that I've been seeing going around the internet about Gen Z's loneliness issue or loneliness epidemic. Because at least for me, this has been something that I've been noticing that's been going on for a while. And thankfully I've been seeing some more content talking about this. So I just really wanted to chime in to keep the conversation going, to talk about what's been going on with Gen Z in regards to loneliness and connection, the impacts of that loneliness, why Gen Z is going through this in the first place, whether that be from social media, a lack of intimacy, or just a general lack of community, as well as finally trying to figure out how we can get out of this and fix this loneliness epidemic. But before we get into any of that, hello, my name's Rumi and you're watching Imurgency, a little series that I run on this channel where I talk about all things related to Gen Z, whether that be media, trends, or just general things in entertainment. So if you like that kind of content and are new around here, then definitely subscribe, leave a like on this video because it helps out a ton, and follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, where I've been posting up a store. And if weekly videos aren't enough for you and you want to support this channel and get some exclusive additional content, then consider hitting the join button and becoming a channel member today. Channel members get access to every single video, as well as getting 2 additional exclusive show review videos a month. So far in the catalog, we have shows and movies like Everything Now, Heartstopper, and Bottoms. So if that's of any interest to you and you want to continue to support the channel, then consider doing that. But with all that aside, let's talk about the Gen Z loneliness epidemic. So what's been going on with Gen Z? If you are a fellow member of Gen Z, have you been feeling this sense of loneliness lately, or have been for a long periodically time? Whether or not you have a solid group of friends or people that you see in your life, just this general feeling of aloneness, lacking connection, or just lacking the feeling of being truly known? If so, you may also be a victim of the loneliness epidemic. Gen Z by and large has been going through what some have been calling the loneliness epidemic. This widespread phenomenon of feeling just more distant and alone both socially and physically than ever before. And as a member of Gen Z, I can definitely second this, like I have been going through this as well. With the world being as it is and with our culture and society becoming more and more isolating, it's understandable why we'd feel this way. And it's not even specifically the concept of having people around you and being around people, because even with having people in your life and having people around you, you can still feel this sense of loneliness and aloneness for multiple reasons, which we're going to get into a little bit later. This video is actually inspired by a really great Atlantic article written by Derek Thompson called Why Americans Suddenly Stopped Hanging Out. And it touches on themes revolving around the whole concept of hanging out, third spaces, or doing things physically together has declined over time and over generations, stating that the steepest declines have been among young people, poor people, and Black Americans. Women and 20-somethings enjoy the most amount of social time in a given week, and low-income, middle-aged, and unmarried men seem to be getting together the least. Thompson also goes on to state that teens and young adults saw by far the largest dip in socializing, especially since 2010, which is really interesting because I feel like media tends to frame this loneliness epidemic as really stemming from 2020 and us moving into a post-lockdown world. So seeing that this has been an issue that's been getting progressively worse for quite some time now, I'm not sure if that's necessarily more reassuring or more frightening. And while talking about socializing specifically is interesting, I feel like specifically when it comes to things like dating, we're seeing that by and large teens are dating less, playing fewer youth sports, spending less time with their friends, and making fewer friends in general. With the article going as far to say that in the 1970s, more than half of 12th graders got together with their friends almost every day, but by 2017, only 28% did. Gen Z is just by and large spending less time with friends, making friends, in relationships, and going out and finding relationships and dating. Like if you look online, there is a plethora of content revolving around the dating crisis that Gen Z is going through and why the dating landscape looks as bad as it does for our generation. People are lonely, people are looking for a connection, and this chronic isolation and just general lack of connection can be very harmful. And not to make a crazy pivot, but one way that loneliness can be fought off is through self-love. And luckily for you, this video sponsor AdamandEve.com can help you with exactly that. AdamandEve.com has been in business for over 50 years and has a wide assortment of things that you can use for your pleasure to practice some self-love. And they have a little something for everybody, some for the girls, some for the guys, something for everybody in between. So if you want to support this channel and get 50% off, you can go to AdamandEve.com and use code RUMI, that's spelled R-U-M-I, to get 50% off one item of your choosing and free shipping in the US and Canada. There are some exclusions that may apply. Everything in Adam and Eve AdamandEve.com comes in discreet packaging and with a 90-day hassle-free return policy, so you don't have to worry about anyone being in your business when it comes to your self-love. So if you're ready to go on that journey, be sure to check out AdamandEve.com. Thanks so much, Adam and Eve, for sponsoring this section of the video and helping us combat our loneliness. It's time to get back into the video and talk about the impacts of said loneliness. The thing about loneliness is that it's not just something that's going on in your head. It's not just mental, and prolonged feelings of loneliness and isolation can actually negatively impact your health. There is an abundance of information, so many studies that show that loneliness can be detrimental to your health. Loneliness can make you prone to things like depression and anxiety, impair your cognitive function and memory over time, weaken your immune system, among many other things. And I'm not just saying this to scare you, I'm just saying this to really highlight how important connection really is to us, and the fact that we as Gen Z are going through these feelings of loneliness collectively just is not healthy, and we need to do something about it. Something needs to be done about it. Which brings me to my next question. Why is Gen Z so particularly lonely? And there are actually multiple explanations for why this may be. Gen Z has grown up in an increasingly distanced and isolated world. And while you may think, yeah, we have like social media and things are more global than they ever have been before, that also can be a double-edged sword. Because we are so global and because we are able to connect and find friends all over the world, that distance is still real. Like, I have friends and mutuals from all over the country and all over the world, but that doesn't mean that I see them all on a day-to-day basis because they are all over the country and all over the world. Like, I can barely get friends that live in the same city to hang out more than once a week. And that's for friendships that are already established. Like, making new friends, especially as a young adult, is so difficult because making connection nowadays is so difficult. And that's mainly because we don't actually have the spaces to do that. And genuine connections require a certain level of intentionality, which is a high barrier of entry for a lot of people. Speaking to the first point, we've seen an almost erasure of third places. And you may be asking, Rumi, what is a third place? According to Wikipedia, a third place refers to the social surroundings that are separate from the two usual social environments of home and the workplace. You can really think of these as any place that isn't your workplace or your home. Like, think like a cafe, a park, a club, anywhere that you can do an activity with others that doesn't revolve around you trying to make money. And when I say that third places are being erased, I don't mean necessarily that these places are non-existent. It just means that we have less and less time and space to go seek out these third places and to find connection in these spaces because of the way that society is currently set up. One of my good friends and mutuals, Amanda Mariana, has made an amazing video talking all about third spaces. I'll link that down below and you should definitely go check that out. But for the sake of this video, I feel like third spaces are just so important for connection because they are spaces where you can just be. Like, you're not at home either alone or with like family or at work doing work obligated things. Like, you're simply existing, enjoying shared interests, ideally with other people who also have those same shared interests, and really get to have and develop those human moments that don't revolve around you making money or doing the things that you need to do to actually survive. And I feel like there has been a push to sort of socially engineer these third places or make an intention to help people make friends, have these organic experiences, friend mixers, or like going to events that are geared towards like making friends and having like a social life. But this one creator, Catherine, made a really good video talking about this and going a little further in it, but I just kind of feel like those are kind of missing the point and kind of fall flat because, like, yeah, you can go and meet all these people, but like, then what? You know, like the whole magic of like a third place, a third space is that there is something that you are doing that you're actually interested in, and you're able to meet like-minded people that are also doing that thing, and you can form a relationship because you do this thing at this place that is unrelated to the other aspects of your life. But when they have these mixers and you show up, the only thing you really know that you have in common for sure is that y'all all just don't have friends. And that's really broad and it can lead to definitely some connection, but by and large superficial connection because you're spending a lot of time doing small talk, trying to figure out what this person likes as opposed to generally having a vibe at more interest-based or organic forms of connection and entertainment in the form of a third place.
I'll tell you one thing, we are not going to make it out of this friendship recession by hosting community events that are just branded around making friends, like so blatantly. I don't know if you've seen these around where you live, but like there will just be community gatherings that are exclusively, like explicitly just for like, come here, meet people, make friends. And like that might seem like a strategic way to go about it, but actually I think it just like further illuminates how little we actually know in this modern age about forming like meaningful connections and friendship. Like it is just not a sustainable practice to have a bunch of strangers come together without any common theme, common interests, and expect them to just bump around like a bunch of atoms and hopefully they'll make a molecule. Like,
and all that I've said about finding a third place, finding a third space, like finding some form of connection with friends is honestly a luxury for a lot of people in modern society, specifically for older Gen Z. There just is not a lot of free time to be exploring this. And this aspect specifically isn't something that's necessarily exclusive to Gen Z because I feel like working conditions suck across the board for everybody. But especially in the formative years of young adulthood where you're trying to establish yourself and figure out who you are, having long working hours, maintaining your life and obligations, and just doing day-to-day things that you need to keep up with those other aspects of your life is time consuming. It makes it incredibly difficult to connect, especially when you consider that a lot of people in that similar position have conflicting schedules and are doing the same thing. So it's even harder to find time to make friends and connect. Like I know, like it's a long-standing joke about adulthood that's not really a joke, but like the fact that you can go from in high school and college where you see your friends practically every day, or at least once a week, to having to fight to pencil in some time to hang out once a month or once every other month, or even less, just because of time and scheduling conflicts. And that's not to say that necessarily everybody's busy, because let's be real, there are also times and also people that have the free time but just don't really know what to do with it because of the aforementioned not knowing who, where, and how to connect. And it just kind of seems easier, less time consuming, and less stressful to just hang out at home. And to sort of address both of those things, I feel like one solution that I personally love but isn't really necessarily talked about enough is the whole concept of parallel play. And again, shout out to my friend Amanda, because I remember watching one of her videos a while back where she talks about the concept of parallel play. And at that time I didn't know exactly what that was, but I knew that's exactly what I wanted and was looking for in my adult relationships. So if you don't know what parallel play is a concept coined by child development experts that can be also applied to adult relationships and for children. For young people, parallel play occurs where children are sharing a play space but doing different activities. And for adults, it's gonna be how we do things day to day, whether it be at work, in our free time, or just with our regular routines. Like for me, my optimal form of parallel play are doing things in the same room as friends, but not doing the exact same thing, like not doing them together, if that makes sense. Like when it comes to work, one thing that I used to really love to do when I was working a corporate job was to meet up with friends who also worked remote and just do our work in the same room. We don't necessarily need to be talking to each other, but we're just in the same room getting our tasks done. And just something about that would be so satisfying and so fulfilling. And it's so easy and lightweight to do. Like just doing things together with people that don't necessarily need to be super involved. Like it could be mundane things that you have to do, just doing it with someone else, like grocery shopping, doom scrolling, going on a walk with headphones, listening to your own music. Like, of course, this isn't going to be like the fix all for everything, but at least I think it could help us make time or squeeze in time for connection where it doesn't have to be like this involved plan or event that takes time away from the things that you have to do that would normally prevent you from hanging out with friends. Like parallel play is one of the reasons why I really value my friendship with my friend Asante, especially when I first moved out here to LA, because LA is known for being notoriously isolating and lonely, and moving here without having a lot of friends was kind of daunting and I didn't really know nobody. But when I was just getting started here, Asante and I would just literally hang out all the time and just do the most mundane things together. Like whether that be just going to the gym, doing errands, grocery shopping, or this one isn't really mundane, but like going to events. It really helped me personally feel connected and fought off a lot of the loneliness that was coming around that time, and the loneliness that's to be expected whenever you go to a new space. So shout out to Asante, but yeah, I'm a heavy proponent for parallel play, although I do acknowledge that still might be difficult with people's conflicting schedules. Then kind of going along with something I was saying before, we have this whole paradox of hyperconnectivity. The feeling of being connected and not at the same time. Having the world and so many people disposable at your fingertips, but also feeling desperately alone whenever it comes down to it. And that's because with social media, I feel like we have this strong pull to connect with people without actually having any actual connection. Like, yeah, you can have all these friends that you have online, that you've made online, or even friends that you have in real life that you haven't seen in a while, but know that you can easily access them online, but still don't. Like, because we feel like we'd be bothering them, we don't really have that connection like that to be hanging out, even though we both established that we at least on some level like each other, or in a kind of dystopian kind of way, we feel that they're doing well so that we shouldn't check up on them, have conversations with them because we already see what's going on in their lives. And I feel like this is honestly a big one. And I'm guilty of this too, but because we're so used to seeing social media as like this highlight reel and always posting updates, whether that be just like you posting something on Be Real or you posting your Instagram stories, Twitter, whatever it may be, there can be this hesitancy to reach out and just call someone to like catch up and connect because you feel like, well, I've already seen how their life is going, how things are going for them on their social media. So I don't want to call or like initiate a hangout where we catch up because like I've already seen everything. And it seems like they're doing really well. And then if you take it to like a different spot in your mind, that may not be the healthiest, but no shade, we all do it. You then start thinking, well, they're doing really well. And if you're not necessarily doing well in that instance, you're like, oh, you know, I don't want to reach out and bring that negative energy if they're on a high right now and I'm on a low. But that's like the issue with social media because we really do view it as like this highlight reel. So people really just aren't reaching out to each other, really forming those connections in the same way, promoting these feelings of loneliness because we think that we know how people are doing based on what they're posting on social media. When in reality, that's not the case. I can attest to this. You can be going through the worst era of your life. Like, you can be struggling and going through it, but make it seem like it's all perfect on social media. Make it seem like you're doing so well on social media. And because it is that way, people may feel less inclined to check up on you because they think everything's going fine. So either we need to start being more real and authentic, or just pick up the phone and call bestie. Text bestie, be like, oh, hey girl, you all right? Everything good? How are things going? Like, I think we need to be more okay with letting people tell us that they are okay. Letting people tell us that things are going great for them, because until they say that to us, to our face, until we have that connection where we can reach out, catch up, we don't know that for real. For the baddies that be running up and down LinkedIn, keeping up with what everyone's doing, this goes double for you. And now I kind of want to dive into some of the roots behind this loneliness, why we feel this deep sense of loneliness, even when we can be around other people. And I feel like by and large, it comes down to intimacy. And I'm just gonna come out and say it. Intimacy is something that everyone wants, but everyone doesn't know how to necessarily articulate or know themselves that that is what they want. Because I feel like intimacy is like shrouded in this connotation of it being something that is like sexual in nature, when in reality, no. The definition of intimacy is close familiarity or friendship, emphasizing closeness, just feeling close to somebody. And I feel like sometimes we substitute like quantity of friendships over the quality of friendship, because this is especially true for people that have a lot of friends but always feel alone, like the popular loner archetype of people. Because of all the reasons that I've gotten into in this video, for one, finding friends is hard. Finding friends of substance is even harder. And then the third added piece of finding friends that you feel like you can be vulnerable with enough to have those intimate connections with is even more difficult. Like, there are layers to this. Like, personally, there are times where I feel so lonely. Like, personally, despite like the support systems that I have going on and the friends and family that are around me, I still find myself in times where I just feel so lonely. And it's been so hard to describe, because I feel like sometimes I shouldn't feel that way. And it's taken me some time to understand what I mean when I say that and what I mean when I feel that way. And through a lot of introspection and through a lot of therapy, shout out therapy, I found that a lot of that feeling is from like a general lack of intimacy. Like creating an environment where just regular phone check-ins are normalized in a friendship. Spontaneous hangouts, coffee chats, or just general little things that make the difference. Like building and sustaining relationships that have that level of care, and knowing that the people around me care for me in the same way that I care for them, and to know and be validated in the sense that like they want to get to know me and they're actually taking the time to get to know who I am on a foundational level. Like, that is what fulfills that loneliness for me. That is what intimacy looks like for me. Like, having those close relationships, having that validation, having that reassurance, that really does help. And I must admit, that is not a commodity. Like, that doesn't happen all the time and with everybody. And those types of friendships and relationships are so hard to have because they require such a level of vulnerability, which is scary for myself and for a lot of people. So for a lot of us, it's easier to just not do all that and just keep things either surface level or to ourselves, which, might I say, does contribute to the male singleness issue, because I feel like a lot of times men don't want to be open about their feelings or really be open at all because of the way that the social systems are set up. Although I will say that men themselves did create those specific social systems where it's not okay to be vulnerable and be open, specifically with other men. Like, I've been seeing so many TikToks and things online about like male friendships not being super deep, like not really knowing things about your other male friends, not showing up to your male friends' birthday parties, or being able to communicate that those things hurt, because masculinity is inherently not vulnerable and super strong and tough and distant.
I made this video telling men if they want to get a girlfriend, they should really focus on getting friends first. And so many of the comments from men were like, no, never mind, I'll just do neither. Spend all my time in the gym. We are at a point in the culture where men would rather go their own way than repair their own relationship to intimacy and to women. Like, genuinely, they have been fed a script that being alone and isolated is more like restorative or good than trying to make friends and opening up to people and like being vulnerable.
Intimacy, vulnerability. Let's get to work. But yeah, I also feel like loneliness does stem from lack of community, and different communities face loneliness very differently. Like, I can speak specifically for the queer community. The queer community has a different form of loneliness, and a lot of that can stem from a lack of community. Like, I know so many queer people that have some amazing friends that they can feel super connected to, super vulnerable with. They happen to be straight, but never feel really connected or accepted into the queer community, or finding a community that is unapologetically queer. Like, I know for gay people specifically, there's this whole idolization of having like a gay friend group. And a lot of times those gay friend groups that are idolized tend to look a little homogenous, which can be excluding for a lot of people, because a lot of queer folk really want that form of community, to having a space to connect with other queer people and share those lived experiences and share those cultural identifiers that really solidify and bring together the queer community, but not being able to fit into those in-groups or find those like people to be in community with, which can create its own set of loneliness around identity, which I find so fascinating. And the And the same can be said for people of any identity and just this general need for community. Like, humans inherently are communal creatures. Like, we are meant to connect and to socialize. And the fact that that's so hard to do now just can't be good for us. And it makes sense why we feel the way we do. It makes sense why we're having this loneliness epidemic. But with all that said, what can be done about this? What can we do to help solve our loneliness? I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers, because trust me, I wouldn't be here if I did. But there are some things that I've looked up and I've seen worked in my life and my circles that could potentially help. But I also do feel like an individualized approach to a more systemic or social issue isn't going to fix it for everybody and isn't going to fix it long term. And I want to acknowledge that. Like, things definitely need to change within like the work-life balance structure of the world right now, as well as the spaces that are around right now to facilitate friendship and connection. But on an individual level, we can all make more of an effort to try and connect authentically and meaningfully, like being really intentional about the relationships that we're pursuing, continuing, and nurturing, whether that be taking the initiative and reaching out to that person you've been having a friend crush on for a while or having an actual crush on for a while, being more vulnerable with the people that are in your life and pouring more into people in your daily life, checking up on them more, as well as trying to incorporate people in your day-to-day life more than you already are. More of that parallel play, like inviting your friends to go grocery shopping with you, inviting your friends or people around you to go do things that are mundane and that both of you were probably going to do anyway. And most importantly, initiate. Even when you feel annoying, and I know this one could be real tough. I know this one could be the most cringy and uncomfortable thing in the world. But I'll say this, it's better to initiate and feel annoying, but be socially fulfilled, than to not be annoying and to be easygoing, but be lonely as hell. Okay? So yeah, maybe we all need to reach out a little bit more, take a little bit more initiative. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say on that. I could make a whole video talking about how loneliness really affects relationships, like romantic relationships, because I feel like for this video it was very much so platonic and generalized relationships. So if you'd like to see a follow-up video on that specifically, then let me know in the comments. But yeah, what do you think about all this? Do you feel like there's a loneliness epidemic? And if so, how has it been impacting you? How have you been trying to deal with it? Let's crowdsource some stories and solutions down in the comment section below. Again, if you're new, thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe, leave a like on this video, and to follow me on my socials at Imurgency. Also, don't forget to check out adamandeve.com and get 50% off of one item of your choosing by using code RUMI. Other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.